Right, so just a little update. I am testing the motor controller because I was doing a lot of research yesterday looking for cells, and there was a few options that I was considering. I'll show you on the computer later in another clip. But the BMW cells are interesting. They're big units that will fit straight into here. Just one cell will produce 44.4 volts nominal, which this motor controller will run perfectly down to about 40 volts. They charge up to 49 volts. Now, they're ideal for a city environment because you will be limited by speed, I reckon. You should only be able to reach perhaps maybe 40 average, which isn't terrible. But for main roads, some of the main roads I'll be driving on, I would rather have the 50 to 60 that I was doing with the blue G-WIZ when it was running. So the other option is Outlander cells. They're also pretty cheap to get hold of. The downside is they're a lot bulkier. They're 29 point something volts nominal, so they're about 16S when you join them together. So they work out at around 60 volts nominal. And they're great, but the ones that I've just found on eBay, which are kind of perfect, are LG Chem cells. They have a huge amount of discharge capacity, and if they are the ones that I found the specs for, you can even charge them at double the rate. And these cells have cooling, and I should be able to fit 5 along here. So that's about 8 kilowatt hours of usable battery power, which is quite amazing. Actually no, that's 6. I was looking to try and get hold of 6 modules. That would be 7 kilowatt hours of battery power. I could potentially build them on top of each other and reach more, or I could put some on the back seats. The aim is to try and get up to around 10 kilowatt hours, so I have 50 to 60 miles range without taking it down to 0. But we shall see what happens if the guy gets back to me. So what I'm just about to do to make sure I can handle those modules is there's a guy on the, if you look at one of my old videos, there's a guy called Roger, and he came along with the, if you remember, the quirky looking frog eye G-WIZ in another video. So he's actually upped his cell count, his cell voltage, up to over 70 volts. Apparently these controllers can handle up to 80, so what I'm just checking is if I have the same controller and the same specs that I need in order to run that. So if I go onto the parameters, all I'm looking for, if this mouse keypad chooses to work, it's a bit awkward, I need to scroll down to the bottom and look for the voltage. There we go, over voltage. So the over voltage is currently set to 55 volts. What we should be able to see is that yes, you can up it right up to 80 volts. So that means that I will be able to put my cells in this car. That's good news. Now the main thing that I am concerned about, however, is that whilst I will be running at 67 volts max charge, I mean this charger when it's unhooked from the EMS should charge up to 66 volts, so that I should be able to use the onboard charger without any problems. You've also got the little DC to DC converter in here for the heated seats, so I'm just a little concerned that I may not be able to connect that up to the heated seats. Now I'm wondering whether I can find another solution, like getting a different DC to DC converter just to power it, but we shall see, because I would like to keep the heated seats for winter. Now that's good news. What I will do while I am on here is go through all the other old parameters like the field, min, etc. I'll go through everything that I did did on the other G-WIZ, but without kind of going too crazy with it. I'm not going to blow the motor on this one. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through some of these settings. Let's have a look. There should be Scroll right up. So what I'm looking for first of all is forward max speed. We want to turn that right up to 255. That will allow you to let's see, can I do this one-handed? No. There we go. So that's up to 255, and then the same with eco max speed. Take that right up to 255. So that will stop it being limited. When you put the accelerator down, that will take it all the way up to 50, 60. There won't be any limit on when the amps start to decline. Now the other thing that I was looking for is, let's have a look, what was the other things on here? I forgot what these ones are, because that one's forward drive 400, eco drive 370. I forgot what that was to do with, but I can go back to that some other time. I'm not going to mess with too many this time. Speed limit, that was it, speed limit enable, turn that off, and then that won't limit the speed, so that works. What else did we want? I think it was the field, something to do with field. That's not it though. Field map start, there it is. Field map start. We want that to go up to 120. I may put it up to 150, but I'll leave it at 120. Now I can't remember what the field map end was about. That may have been to do with the amps too. We'll have to see how that goes, but I think I did push that up to 400 before. But otherwise I've just got to set the over voltage just in case I go up to 67 volts on the other batteries. I can always turn that down if I get smaller cells like the BMW cells. But I'm going to set that up to 67 volts. Actually no, I'll set it to 68 just in case it's fully charged. And I think that's everything I need to do for the time being. So there we go, so that's the basic parameters set. I might up the field map start. Oh, that didn't save, did it? That's weird. Did I not save it? Maybe I had to press enter. Oh, so that means I need to go back and do everything else. So I'll do that after this video stops, but I think, there we go. You have to press enter, which I completely forgot about. So field map start. Let's turn that back to 120. I'm tempted to put it to 150. I need to check what Roger has his at because his is running okay. But yeah, I think I'll leave it at 120. That's, if I remember correctly, that gave me a decent speed. Speed enable off. So all I've got to do is go right back to the top. Right to the top. Eco max speed. Oh no, that one has gone to 255. Forward max speed 255. There we go. So that's all my settings done, and I look forward to trying it once I get the batteries in. After doing a bit more research and digging around, asking a few people, what I've found out is that there's a chance that this DC to DC converter will work at the required voltage for the 60 volt cells that I was looking into, the LG Chem. And I'm hoping the guy gets back to me on those ones, because if that is the case, I may be able to run up to 67 volts through this converter. And the only one that I'm not so sure about is this, but I may be able to just put a different 12 volt supply through it in order to power the heated seats if that doesn't do the job. And that should hopefully be the way forward. Now the reason why these were cutting out at 55 volts is possibly because this wasn't set above the 56 volts. I don't know, because I did try a DC in Cornwall at 56 volts and it was running. So fingers crossed that this will continue to run if I do put 60 odd volts through it. It doesn't give you a max voltage on here, so we will see. So now it's just a waiting game. I'm seeing when that person gets back to me and whether I can go and pick the cells up in the next couple of days. I've done all the settings on the laptop, so that's ready to accept the cells and adjust the parameters to what I'm after. Now one thing I spoke to with Roger, who had the REVA G-WIZ, I gave him a call, had a chat. I asked him about the top speed of the G-WIZ and the voltage, and he's actually got 74 volt cells in there now, 74 volts max charge, and he sits at 55 miles an hour no problem on flats. I am tempted to go that high, but I don't think I'll be able to run any of this stuff with it. He hasn't got the original charger or any of that, so I'm trying to keep it within the parameters of this charger, which will charge up to 66 volts, which is ideal for the packs I'm looking at. But his cells are 74 volts, he can hold 55 mile an hour no problem, so that's quite interesting. If you were to push it closer to the 80 volts, you should be able to, if you take out the converter and the original charger, you should be able to push this car up to 60 with using the original controller, which is kind of cool. So that's a really nice idea. I'd love to try, but I'm not quite sure if I would go that route. Maybe I'll have a look at some of the cells, see if I can find some that will do that for me, go up to that voltage. I think the Tesla Model S cells could work, but you need 3 of them, and that would be about 3 grand, so that's way out my budget for now. What I'm trying to do is to get this car running for under a grand in terms of the batteries, so that is achievable with the certain cells that I've found right now. So these are the cells that I'm looking at. This is the BMW i3 cell. So in terms of talking of a budget, and you're not too worried about trying to go above 50 miles an hour or even 45, if you're around the city and you're doing mostly 30 to 40 miles an hour, these cells should be ideal. They're £780 including VAT, and they nominal voltage of 44.4 volts and a max voltage of 49. So these are already 4,000 watt capacity, which means that these will be almost similar to the usable capacity on the lead acid. It'll be a bit short, you'll probably get about 30 miles out of this, but it's great for a small runabout. Now the only thing you will have to do with these particular cells is to sorry about that, I've just switched the computer on. So the only thing you'll have to do with these cells is to adapt the charger using a 1 to 5 volt signal on pin 8, I believe. On REVA G-WIZ Car Club Facebook group, there's a file section with the pin out, thanks to Paul, I believe. So you would have to that's quite distracting. You would have to change the voltage on pin 8 in order to get the voltage that you need to charge up to these packs. I think it'll be about 1 or 2 volts you'd need to get up to 49.2 max voltage. So they'll run right down to 32, so you won't be able to get the whole of the pack because the controller will cut out at about 36 or 38 volts. Which is kind of good in this respect because it means you'll never run the batteries flat. The controller will cut out before that, so you'll be safeguarding the batteries without actually having a BMS on board. But you can connect these cells to the SIMP BMS and up to therefore a CAN bus charger if you really wanted to. But yeah, so just the cells on their own, £780, that's not a bad deal at all. Now they have a bunch of other cells on their site. This is Second Life EV batteries. They have a bunch of other cells that could be quite interesting to use. They have the Outlander UASA cells. Those are probably the only other ones I would actually look at out of these packs. Or potentially e-Golf. Hang on, what kind of size are they? I haven't looked at them properly. So they're 1630. Let me just do a quick calculation on the calculator. So let's bring the calculator over here. So if we do one, so it's 15.2 volts. So if we want to run up to 75 max divided by 15.2. Oh, so 5. No, but that's the minimal. Sorry, that's the nominal. You want to be up to 70 with them. 15.2 times by 4. Ah, that's perfect actually. 4 of those cells will give you a 60.8 volt nominal, which means you can still use the original charger, etc. You could actually probably get away with 3 cells. 3 times 15.2, 45.6. That might not be too bad. That's around 15.2 divided by 2. No, 15.2 divided by 4. So that's around, let's see what it would be. 4.2 times by 4. So max charge is 16.8 times by 3. So 50.4 max charge. That isn't too bad. That would be a similar thing to running the BMW cell, so you probably are better going with BMW. But looking at the capacity wise, 1630 times by 3, you'd have 4890 times by 0.8 guaranteed. So you'd have about the same capacity as the BMW packs too. But these modules might fit better. I haven't looked at the size of them. Now 348, they are going to be more expensive. Times by 3, so they're 1044. They're not a whole lot expensive. So that is another possibility that I just kind of overlooked. So that's that. So now the other option is the UASA cells. Now they come in these ready-made packs, or they come individually as the cells. They just have little bolts on top of them to wire them in what kind of series you want to. But with the Outlander, you only need 2 of these to create the same voltage as the other cells I was looking at, which are the LG Chem modules. So these, you need 2 of them in series in order to create 60 volts nominal for running the car. Now that would cost you about 425 times 2, so £850. And that's not terrible, except you're only getting about 1320 times by 2 times by 0.8. You're only getting 2000. You're only getting 2000 watt hours out of those cells roughly. So you're only going to be limited to 15 to 20 miles. Now they're not bad cells. You'd have to pay about £2,000 to get a reasonable capacity, and they're decent cells. They're quite reliable, but they are bulkier, I think, and as I say, more expensive. You can get cheaper LEV40 modules. They're only a bit cheaper. They're about 300 instead, so that's another possibility. But no, so the ones I'm looking at are these LG Chem cells. Now this guy has a few in stock, and I'm after 1 string of 6. And this is the system on here. So 3 match strings currently available. So there's potentially 23 kilowatt hours of power that he's got over 3 strings of 6, which I would really love to get, but I just shouldn't spend that much, even though it is very, very tempting. That would give me this would kind of give me the long range power that I want, with ability for cooling, etc. Because if you have a look at these cells, the great thing about them is that they are also water cooled. There you go, you can see the things there. These are water cooled, and they're pretty cheap. They're about 190 quid each on eBay, a bit cheaper when you buy bulk. So they're all compatible with Canvas and all that kind of stuff. Here's the data here. So each cell has a maximum voltage of 66.3 volts and a minimum voltage of 44.83. The one string is 9.6 kilowatt hours, usable 7.68 kilowatt hours. So that's a pretty decent amount to stick under the G-WIZ, and I think you'll get 5 of these under there no problem, 6 squeezing it. I reckon if you could really squeeze it, you could fit another layer on top under the seats and have 14 kilowatt hours under there, but you can safely get around 6 kilowatt hours under the seats, which is kind of perfect for a short 50-mile range. So that's the ones I'm hoping the guy gets back to me on. I haven't heard back just yet, but this will give me a 66 volt maximum charge. Actually, the charge is kind of perfect on that then. I was thinking it would charge to 67, but no, so 66 volts, that's the perfect voltage for the onboard charger, and voltage min. So yeah, that would run right down quite happily to yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm hoping that the guy gets back to me, because these are the cells that I'd love to play with. Now the downside to here is that I can't find any more online, so they are a very limited resource compared to all of these, which I did want to play around with these simply because anyone can pick one up and stick it in their own car, and it's compatible with Synth BMS and all that kind of stuff. So I was hoping to do with something with this, but after seeing the deal on these cells, I am just too tempted to go with a higher voltage. And the other thing that I'm tempted to do is to push it up to 74 volts like Roger did, except then I will not be able to use the DC to DC converter and all of that kind of stuff. So maybe in the future, we'll see. But I think this is the highest voltage that I can run to without having to change too much out of the system. And he also told me that the heater runs better as well on higher voltage. It runs hotter. So so there's a bonus too. Right, so that's the rundown on the batteries that I'm thinking of getting. And we shall see which ones I end up with in the next video. So I think I'll end this video here, and hope you keep watching and seeing the yellow G-WIZ brought to life.